Hi, I'm Tanya Meeks. This is Quinn Brown Huffman, and we're with the Motherhood Channel. And welcome. Do you want me to go ahead and start about what we're
Welcome.
sharing about?
Yes, I love
Yeah.
this. This is a juicy tool that I love. Go for it. I'm with you.
Okay. So we were talking, I pulled a card before we started today. And so I use a lot of different kind of divination decks. Rebecca Campbell, there's Sacred Rebels, which is what I pulled this card from Alana Fairchild. And if you're on the
On
visual
YouTube,
Zoom,
see the
YouTube,
visuals.
you'll be able to see the visuals of these, but we can provide links too. So we pulled a card and we were talking about the power of using these tools. And I think that a lot of times pulling kind of these divination decks can be helpful in the sense that they'll pull from our unconscious things that we need to hear, things that are percolating to the surface. And so the card we pulled I pulled was conscious connections. And a lot of that theme was how relationships change, how some can hold the polarity or the tension in the relationships and others break away. And that's a natural season of relationships and friendships and life. And I think what we were talking about is how becoming a mother, I've said this many times, kind of shifts our DNA. And I think many times it shifts our relationships to others, who's in our relationships, how we navigate relationships. Yeah, so.
Exactly. I mean, I love it. I'll speak into, I've used Oracle cards. It's one of my tools that I've engaged since I was, more than 20 years ago, I'm going to say. I found the first deck of cards that I found was the Osho Zen, which still I have and go to when I do my own oracle, which, like you so beautifully said, it really just taps into what is up. It's not about fortune telling. It's not about
not at all.
Figure out what's to come. It's to figure out where I am at in this moment and how best to serve myself moving from this present moment forward. And that's why I love the Oracle. And it's just such an artistry. And that rebel pack that you've got, I'm hoping I find one for myself too. There's another one I just really fell in love with called the Earth Warriors.
Oh, nice. I can see that.
Yeah. So I just saw that and I'm going to look for it because I use the Osho Zen, and my other favorite one that I'll quickly say is the Embodied Oracle card, which is my sister, coach, mentor, friend, Himalayas Oracle deck that she channeled, and the artistry on it. It's just so beautiful. And the gift of embodying practices to serve us going forward. Oh, I love it. I love it. I think this morning I pulled the gift, which is the last card in that deck. And it's really embracing this shift in consciousness. And so when you brought this conscious relationships card, what's it called?
Conscious connections, but it was about conscious relationships.
Yeah.
There's a line that
appropriate. It's appropriate as we go through these changes. And like you say, motherhood changes things. It changes how we relate in the world. We're changed. And I said from a very young age also, I know who I am in relation to others. And so our relationships kind of mirror that. And yeah, like you said, talk about that, how much has changed since you became a mom and how you navigate who's in your life and who leaves.
I think that I realized that I have this huge mothering spirit. And so I mothered a lot of people in my life, not consciously. Do you know what I mean? I played the role of a mom, like of the caretaker, of the supporter, of the thing. And once I became a mom, all that energy that was filtered kind of like to a lot of people channeled into my focused, oh, I am a mother. This is a child that I get to mother. And so I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was doing that in my other relationships. So a lot of relationships that weren't really that reciprocal, that I wasn't conscious that they weren't reciprocal. I wasn't like upset prior, really kind of fell away. And it was kind of shocking that a lot of relationships shifted because I shifted so much. So people were used to me being available to kind of play this. I mean, I am a therapist, so I played that, I would play this kind of like just a person that was there and could process and was available, like infinitely available. And so my availability went from being like super expansive to like, wow, I have like no space without having my child kind of present, where it wasn't the same kind of attention. So people had a really strong reaction to how I had shifted. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And so it was kind of confusing to me because I love people so much, like you were saying, how you love so deeply and you forever love them. I feel the same, like I forever will love people, even that have shifted or we've outgrown each other or the season has changed, but I still love so deeply. So I think previously, before having Sparrow, I hung on to everybody. I didn't let anybody go. Like everybody was on the boat with me, whether they wanted to be on the boat or not. I just kept everybody on, whether I was holding them up with my arms on the thing, they were on the sails, didn't matter. Everybody was coming. And so I think that now, like I still will love them deeply, but I can't fight the same way for things that aren't really syncing up. Does that make sense? There's just not the same bandwidth. So it's interesting to see that, you know what I mean?
It is.
What about you?
I love how you spoke into, you keeping everyone on the boat. And then when you are suddenly steering this boat with this, meeting this one little person that is for real vulnerable and needs your full attention, that sense of response to this being that's come through us and we're guiding them or we're keeping them safe. I mean, you don't have the arms to keep everyone else on board.
Yeah.
And if they're not keeping themselves on board, c'est la vie. It is what it is. And that is I so get what you're saying. I felt very similar and I've lost that sense. You've actually spoken into something that I didn't realize was real. And because I think when I became a mother, I moved cities and I had no one close to me. Like it was all, it was a phone call or a Zoom call. What was it at that time? Skype.
Yeah, but you didn't have like
lucky,
the tribe right there. So it
wasn't
like,
right there.
You changed geographically.
Exactly. So geographically, I shifted. The isolation was real. I lost that point of reference of myself. It was really intense. And I think because of that geographical change, I didn't really notice how much offboarding I was doing, how natural that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's, it's intense. It's an intense.
It's intense, but I think that it's something about the level of grief. And I think that that's not really something, because you have this immense love, like a love that cracks open your heart. That's the biggest love you've ever, like, it's indescribable.
Right.
And then yet there's this grief over all these shifts and tides changing, and, the whole landscape looks very different. And I thought my Aries intensity was like, everything is good. I'm going to maintain, you know what I mean? I just didn't really I thought, oh, I'm going to be different. I can do it all. And that I'm not going to be this, like, I don't know what kind of these isolated mom. I just thought, why would I do that? My mom wasn't isolated. Why would I be isolated? That would never happen. But there is a level of isolation that does happen, even if you're still forging through the world at a rapid pace, or you're very extroverted. There's still there is still an isolation that happens, even if it doesn't look, quote unquote, like you're isolated on the homestead,
It's true, my friend. Oh my gosh, that isolation is real for every mother that I have met and been with, whether they like to admit it or not, because either they're trying to keep it together and portray an image, or be out in the world with the stroller or the baby in arms, but the disconnect is still there because the focus is so complete.
Yeah.
And I will never forget the moment where that grief hit me over the head, Charlotte was 4 months old, 3 or 4 months old, I had continued to go to this yoga class because I was like you, I was determined to continue on my way, and she was going to join my adventure, and
Right.
I was going to continue on.
No, I got
And
it.
I was in this yoga class, and the shavasana was happening, and normally it's fine. And if she starts making a peep, I leave. And before I could get up and leave, this woman left, and I met her outside, and she just gave me this look.
Like,
And I was like, listen, please don't make this my fault. Go back. I'm leaving. I understand that this is not a kid's baby mama class, and I respect that. And I'm so sorry. This shift of her awakening just happened really fast. I didn't see it coming, and I shouldn't have come to this class, and I'm so sorry. And I was just apologizing, like,
yeah, you were like, oh, go, yeah.
And she's like, no, but she actually meant it. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
The ghost just came in. My door just opened. It's like someone just came in. Anyway, so I got in my car, and I sat in my car for an hour, and I wept because it dawned on me that what I envisioned and what I thought was possible, no.
Yeah.
Things were changing, and they will never be the same. And how I move in the world will be different, and who I can encounter in which ways I used to be able to will never be the same. Whew, it was a big moment of realization, and really acknowledging that grief. It's not all sunshine and roses. It's not just happy hormones. It's a real thing.
I think there's such a dichotomy of such an immense grounded love that's so intense and beautiful and magical, and yet there's this just a lot of tide shifting that you don't even know. It's funny because a friend of mine that's very similar in her personality and style was like, oh, I think that I didn't even realize I was grieving. And she's like, I think you do the same thing. You keep on the go because you're doing all these outward things to not feel isolated, but it's not really the same thing. And I was like, ooh, she's like, and I didn't even realize I was doing it until like years later. And when she said it, I was like, oh, because I remember watching her with her little one, because she had her little one, I guess there's probably a 20-year gap. And I remember like, God, she's just running around, whipping through the world. It's so intense. And I could see it. I thought it was beautiful. I didn't think anything of it, but I can see the parallels now, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It wasn't like I even thought it was odd when I witnessed it 20 years ago, but now I can look back and be like, oh, wow, there is so many parallels. And I was at the Breathe Cold Plunge place in Carlsbad that I love. And there was a guy, Sparrow comes with me, and he had started singing Jingle Bells when I was doing the hot tub. And this guy was like, had his eyes closed, kind of meditating. And I said, oh, I'm really sorry. And then he like plugged his ears for a minute. And I was like, oh, we need to act similar to your yoga. I was like, oh, we're just going to shift to another room. Like, we're going to move on out of here. And when we went to the sauna, he was in there. I was like, I'm really sorry. I was like, that's why we shifted once he started like singing. I was like, oh, we were interrupting kind of the vibe of the space. And I really want to be conscious of that. And he was like, no, he was like, it was partially me. He was like, this is a public space. People come in, many people are having conversations. He was like, I wasn't doing it to react to you, to be like, you need to do something. And this is why I'm closing my eyes and plugging my ears. He was like, but it was interesting how I tracked and thought, oh, it's because of this. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yes, and he ended up talking about doing a one-man show in San Francisco, and we performed solo shows for years, kind of parallel. And it ended up being this really interesting conversation. But what I realized when you were telling that story of the shift, I had Sparrow. I did a show for many years. I did a show pregnant, which was fine. Then I had him, and I had him in the show as an infant, which kind of worked. And then we did our last show here in Encinitas when he was maybe 3. I don't know how old he was, but he was walking, and it was kind of like a train wreck. And I remember being like, wow, this isn't, but I was so convinced that I could have this dynamic, innovative thing with him in it, and we could have this really experimental art piece. Anyways, but it was me hanging on to the old ship. I was like, I will do my one woman show. I will. I had the props, I had paintings. He was like climbing on a painting. I mean, and I was trying to like, not pretend it was okay, but it was just, I was like, like, wow, okay. This is not like, I remember being like, this is not working. And it stopped me in my tracks, like, because it was such an epiphany, but it's like, I needed to see it play out live with an audience where it wasn't working.
Whew.
Small.
Yes. No, but still it is. And it's such a, something that is so dear to you, that performing arts, something that you carried on as such a vision. That's a big thing to acknowledge, that won't move in the same way as what you at first thought it would. And what is it that you do then? Do you don't give it up, do you? You just shift.
I don't think you give it up, but I think there has to be a moment of like, oh, it will look different. It may look like I do less shows. It doesn't mean I can't do one woman shows. It wouldn't be at the same. It would just look different. It would be a different it would look different in the sense that maybe I wouldn't run as many shows. Maybe I wouldn't do shows as late at night because I do, like, yeah, it's just, it was an interesting thing of trying to do it the same way and just bring him along. I just was like, I can just
slide in there.
Like, just slide it in there. I think because, when I look back at looking at our family of origin and how things were played out, my mom just towed me in her world. So I think that was my framework, even though I had done a lot of work and didn't want to repeat those patterns that were passed down. So I didn't repeat the trauma patterns, but there was like an unconscious piece of like, oh, we just go in the world together, parallel, do, because that's my experience. And I have like kind of good memories of that, ironically. You know what I mean? It wasn't like this tragic thing. They were adventures, and
yeah,
I was part of a world that I wanted to be part of. So I'm curious of like, from your childhood, what played out, like, was there playing out the same pattern, or did you reject? I feel like people either play the same pattern out or reject part of it and then try to like make up for missing pieces.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for me. I think it's less obvious in its so my cats are going crazy here around me.
I can see their kitties are like,
what's happening. Anyway, sorry about that. So
okay. No, it's okay.
My pattern the thing that I'm really conscious about is probably, I was my mom's first child, and she speaks about this too, like really fearful. There was fear involved. She was scared for me. And I think I was a reluctant being. I really at first was reluctant to be here. I mean, the birth was induced, and then I was sick when I was born, and then she had to rush me to the hospital a few times. And anyway, so I know there was circumstances that definitely highlighted her fear around being a mother responsible and her sense of isolation. So when I gave birth and Charlotte came through, I dreamt with her before she was born. It was a very incredibly conscious pregnancy, and she was very much present. So I had an idea of who I was giving birth to a certain extent. And then I was very surprised by who she constantly surprises me. I think I know her, and then she's like, no, you don't. And
you knew a version of me, and here's another part. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the pattern I am breaking, or that I am leaning into a different way, is that I trust her path and her being and the way she wants to be in the world, I promote 100% of trust in myself for her, so that if she wants to climb the tree, if she wants to try something, if she's doing something, I promote it. I'm like, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
Climb as high as you can, as long as you can get yourself down. Because my mom was very careful with me.
Yeah,
And that infuriated me to no extent. And I know that it had a certain impact on me, how I face certain things in life. It's something that I had to overcome. And so that's the one thing that comes to mind when you ask that question. Yes, I'll have to sit on it for a minute. I think.
Yeah. I know that was a complex question.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to it, because when you start looking at it, and I do work with parents with that question a lot, because we do renegotiate and we're evolving. Every generation evolves we have to, that's part of our nature. And why and this world that's changing so fast.
It is
People are
changing
navigating
so fast.
in a whole new way, at a whole new pace. And so
we went to, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we went to I was looking at different art museums, and I was like, oh, we'll go to the museum. And we went to we went to the Van Gogh immersive one. And there's another one downtown San Diego that's immersive, that's super modern, called WMDR or WDR. Now I can't, Wingard. Anyways, I'm like, how to plug the show that I don't know the name of, which was really amazing. Downtown San Diego immersive. I think it's connected with the modern. I'll look it up before we're finished. Anyways, so I was comparing that to another museum. We were looking through what the options were. And because he associates these interactive museum experiences, and he's a kid, makes sense. But he was like, oh no, he thinks that the museum is all immersive experiences, which is interesting. It's just a totally different. There were all these art where you would interact, there was an AI thing. There were just so many. It was actually very cool, but it's a very different experience than looking at a statue or a figure. It's like very static. And I feel like the generation has so much data coming at them. They're waiting for this very interactive, and the other is like, what do you got for me? What do you got for me? What's happening next? Even with like looking at an aquarium, it's very like, what's happening? There's a very, it's just different. It's fascinating.
Feedback. I see that with mine too. I can take them to the museums. They instantly bored. And I have to say, I'm right there with them. I can't do it. And Laura and they would both go, okay, but now what are we doing? What are we doing? Where's the interaction? They want to interact with things.
Similar. Like I want like art museum or an art exhibit that lets you do an art project or lets you do something there. Then I want to go. And I do feel similar. So I get it. I think that's why we love like the Sawdust Festival so much, because there were so many interactive where you could actually make art yourself. It wasn't just being an observer. So just interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
We get there now. How do we get to talk about?
I know, exactly. We went from oracle, divination, unconscious, family of origin,
losing people, gaining people, grieving,
ship of people falling
into the museum, interacting. I love it.
I think that it's my tangential processing is what that is. That's called a tangent. I had a person many years ago call me tangent. He was like, and there she goes on a tangent. That's what that was, I think. I don't know how I pulled that out of that, to be honest.
That is amazing. I know. I just realized, because I was like, oh, that's like, that's such an interesting through line. But
you're like, how do we segue back?
Here's the through line is our interaction with the world and navigating our children and motherhood, like our relationships in the world. Look at that. I can find a through line. And so I want to just engage back into like re-navigating how we are based also on how we were brought up and how we shift into our motherhood. But the whole thing around matrescence and the grieving, because you give birth, or you gain this person into your family, because honestly, adoption is a form of birth too, and I want to acknowledge that, and all these different ways people grow their families. It changes the dynamic, and it causes people to change on a biological level, because we do when we take on that responsibility. And that is like being an adolescent, and we go through those shifts, and it is grieving a part of yourself. I see my oldest, who is now 11, and since she was 9 or even a little younger, has gone, I never want to grow up. I want to stay right here.
The same thing.
Right. And
That's
Laura is saying the same thing now. And I love that, because they're present with where they are. I'm like, every time you grow another year older, just celebrate that part. Don't worry about being older or younger, just where you are. And, you know, that's part of the big change that comes when you're a teenager, like the big change that comes when you're a mother, means that you lose a part of yourself. You lose something. When you gain a lot, you lose something. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's not terrible. It's just life. It's the cycle. And I have to acknowledge, I mean, I had this conversation with Ryan. He goes, why can't we just gain? Why can't we just build on and go? I said, because that's not the nature of life. And that's not the nature of our well-being. We cannot just accumulate. We have to be able to shed the layers in order to be part of this world, this human existence. We are just an organism on this planet, is my sensation. And we want to keep making it so much more than just that. And then we destruct the world, we destruct ourselves, because we cannot acknowledge the cycle of life and death. And so, sorry, that was my tangent. There you go. We both got to have it.
I get it. No, I get it though. I feel like it's an interesting thing to think of, like you gain something and you shed something, like shed old skin, shed different parts of ourselves. There's a grief. So it's interesting, like shedding shedding skin like a snake, you know, you shed layers. They have to be able to grow. Otherwise, you are the person on the ship trying to hold all the things, and pretty soon the ship sinks because it gets too heavy. It can't hold everything. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So the ship won't sail if you don't like shed the layers and the things, or the parts of our soul, or people, or strategies, or styles, careers, pieces of the puzzle.
Totally.
I really love the ship metaphor. I feel like it could be a good.
I like it. Yeah.
People hanging.
Yeah. You're seeing the image. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's very relevant. The ship sinking. We don't want the ship to sink. We want to keep in the flow, find the current, steer with the flow.
Move forward still. Otherwise it's gonna, not be able to. Little spirit in the background. I don't know what that's. He's okay. He's like reacting to something.
He's watching something. But no, I feel like this is a contemplative moment, because that was a lot of information that just came through.
For everybody,
Yeah, and for you and me. I mean, it's a time of shedding. I feel the world is negotiating how we move forward as a culture, as a world culture. And it's beautiful, but it's a time of realization and grief. I really feel that on a collective. And we got to just breathe. I think, if you have your own oracle card deck that you want to engage because it's fun and it makes it visible and it gives it words and meaning, and many of these decks give you tools. But you know what? You don't need it. You just need your breath.
Yeah, and tuning into, I think people, I think because we are so inundated with data and just so much is coming at us at such a rapid pace, I think for people to be able to slow down and journal or meditate or pray, like have some internal thing where they're able to dialogue
Mm.
with their God, with their soul, with their spirit, with the ocean, whatever their belief structure is, to have that, to be able to slow down and listen, I think is a really, so I think that that's what oracle cards and yoga and meditation and
Mm.
all can do those things. But I think, yeah,
Yeah.
slowing down and actually
It's
sitting with your
consciously
soul
slowing
is like a different thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Consciously slowing down, you're right. And really, you have to make it a choice, because the pace, like you say, of the world is, if you keep your phone on and you keep engaging, it won't stop coming.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not going to slow down for you. You have to say pause, switch
Mhm.
off, walk away, close your door, draw the curtains, or go to the beach and
Be in nature. Yeah. I find nature.
nature. Hug a tree, for Pete's sake, and just breathe in the oxygen. Just breathe.
Just breathe. So I think everyone can, yeah, I think the theme is to be able to find that space in your life. And I think as mothers, it can be a new journey of how you carve out that space. For sure.
Let's model it for our children so that they don't jump on the rapid race bandwagon. Because the only thing we can do is model what keeps us engaged in this natural world,
For sure.
in a positive and connected way. Conscious connection, right? That was
Conscious connection. Yeah. That's the, I think the through line and kind of the closing piece is how to consciously connect with your children, with the world, with your soul. And I would love to hear on the Instagram or YouTube, I guess on Instagram is the best place, on the Motherhood channel, people's experience, like with grief, with conscious connection, with all the things we've thrown at you. The ship, is it
Yeah.
sailing? Is it sinking? What's happening? You know?
Share with us. Tune in on Instagram, the Motherhood channel, and listen here. If you want to see the visuals, go to YouTube, the Motherhood channel on YouTube. And if you want to have a really good time, go to the playlist that Tanya created about her mom coming through, and you'll see Sparrow, and it's just so divine. I love, you need to keep going, my friend.
I know. I am going to commit today live with you all that I will do that again today. I was like, I'm going to do 365 days. So today I'm restarting.
It's all about coming back and recommitting. That's it. That's all we can continuously do. Begin again. I am on day 26 and I finished Sharaveti. The book is shared.
Okay.
It's on there in its most raw. It's like I shared the first draft of it. It's not the final draft. I shared the first draft I wrote. And in its raw format. So it's in the world. It's done. So today we move forward with whatever else comes through. So now it's really getting exciting. So you and I get to begin again together.
Perfect.
Okay, so here we go.
January 31st, recommitting. And I think I'm going to do more of my mom coming through, including like myself, like parallel, you know.
The conversation.
Parallel,
It's
the conversation.
juicy.
I know.
It's so juicy.
Yeah. Okay. Big love, you all. Thanks for tuning in. Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, YouTube, Motherhood channel.
The Motherhood channel. Thank you, everyone. Always in love.
Big love.